we on, Wes?
5 seconds, and yeah, we're live.
All right. I'll call the meeting to order. Rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. I think the first thing we need to do, we need to make a motion to amend the consent agenda to reflect the addition of the minutes from the Southeast Forum on May 2nd and the new bills totaling $361,436.53.
So moved.
Second.
Any other additions or changes to this agenda?
Not that I'm aware of.
Any that anybody else is aware of? Going once, going twice?
What was the question?
Are there any
If we have
other
any other
changes?
changes to the agenda, before we just go ahead and approve it, is there anything else that needs to?
Be added. Well, I will
Uh-huh,
want to, when we
changed.
get the new business, separate out administrator and faculty on the salary thing.
Okay, yeah, so we'll do that one.
I don't think that's,
Yeah, But nothing new?
Yeah.
Okay, nothing else that isn't already here? Okay.
everything else is covered as I can see.
Just wanted to make
So
sure.
now I'm all in favor of the motion to amend?
Aye.
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 And approve? Yes.
Does that, does it need to be two different, or?
The one, actually, the agenda that I've got in front of me has the changes that you mentioned.
Well, they were added after 6 o'clock last night,
Yeah.
There you
so.
go.
Then you're, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
All right, so now I need a motion for the adoption of the agenda for the remainder of the meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstained? All right, do we have any public comments? No public comment. All right, so we'll move on to reports. First up is Superintendent Mr. Pettit.
Okay. Well, good evening, everybody. Can you hear me okay? Kind of remember to keep that close to my mouth. Just let me know if it's not loud enough. So for tonight, we're going to go through a few things. It'll probably feel a little bit like a pinball, as I want to cover some financial stuff. We're getting ready for budget approval in the June meeting, so there's several financial things I want to cover. Of course, tonight we have salary schedules and increases to discuss, and then we have to cover some other topics that are unrelated to that. So forgive me as we pinball just a little bit, but it should make our new business go a little more smoothly. Unfortunately, as I start out with this tonight, I wish I were starting it with something really upbeat and positive, but I want to start talking about the district's finances. As part of our district governance plan, we need to talk about our projection of finances. And there are a lot of things going on in the state of Missouri's finances. In fact, it's starting to be known as the funding cliff for those who are already in the know. Even though the district has passed a levy, there's a lot of things we need to navigate. And when you project out a few years, you really see that. Now, before I start down this road, I'll tell you, I see good things on the other side of this, but we're going to have to be really proactive and thoughtful the next couple of years. So why do we have a funding cliff coming to the whole state? It's because of all the ESSER dollars that districts have grown accustomed to. For people who have just been in education since 2020, they haven't seen normal funding levels and trends in that time. And that takes a while, but it's going to translate to impacting budgets around 2025, which was going to be an impactful year for us. Without the levy, even more so. So thankful for the levy. But those dollars are allocated. So soon district leaders are going to have to wrestle with that challenge. Here's what Marshall's funding cliff specifically is going to look like to bring that home for people. So with COVID-19, funding in public education was given in what they called the COVID provision, meaning that funding levels were kept at 2020 levels. And in 2020, Marshall Public Schools had more students on free or reduced, and more special education students. All of those are touching on funding sources for our district. Free and reduced, for example, prior to COVID-19, we had around 70% of our student population on free or reduced. Because of COVID-19, there were free lunch and breakfast programs. People weren't required to fill out applications to qualify. And without qualifying those students and having that information, when the COVID provision drops off, we lose a significant amount of money for that alone, upwards of $1 million. We had 2,500 students prior to COVID. We're down in the 2,400 range with projections of continued declines in that area. And again, even though we passed the levy, that doesn't mean that we just are sitting on money comfortably. That money was passed and allocated for purposes that are different from this, and we still need to plan accordingly. Special education also, I didn't say about, tell you details about that. Special education, the Great Circle property is going to make an outstanding early childhood center, but there were something like 70 plus students in that building that were on our ADA. Some of them fell under some of those umbrellas of special funding, such as special education. And so those students aren't going to come back, neither is their funding. Again, it's okay, we're planning well in advance, but it's going to have implications for decisions we make. So next year is the last year, and I'm referencing next year is the last year that we know we are funded at that level. So as we talk about raises tonight, which might seem like an oxymoron, it is important that we give raises. We can do so responsibly is going to be my recommendation tonight. But next steps are really important. It's also necessary for all these obvious things, retention, being competitive, and just frankly, our staff deserve it. The raises that I'm going to present, which may seem like a contradiction at this moment, but I'm going to explain how we're going to make this work in the long run. 2% for certified staff, 2% for classified staff, and that's an average of 17 different salary schedules, averaged out to 2% and applied to the base of each one. And then benefits have gone up. That wasn't our choice, but the benefits costs have gone up, and I'm proposing to cover the impact of that cost to our employees. The total cost of those 2% for employees, 5.5% for benefits is broke out there, and the total implication is around $619,000. Again, yes, we can do that responsibly, but here are the things we have to consider, and it's part of our governance plan that I explain this to you. If the district does not change its current trajectory, meaning if we don't plan for that funding cliff as we approve, hopefully, these increases tonight, this is what I project with current numbers we can anticipate happening to our reserve. 21-22 school year is behind us. Last school year ended, the fiscal year for schools ends in June, and then we get our ASBR report around August, usually officially approved. We ended last year at around 22.59, and that fluctuated actually this year post-June because we were doing some work with all those COVID dollars. We recoded and changed some things to help preserve those funds to make sure the state never came back and asked for them. We probably recoded around $500,000 there to make sure we protected that. In this current year, which will end at the end of June, we project that we could be as high as 29.31%. Both of those reserves, what I'm saying, are inflated by ESSER. Millions of dollars came through our budget that is reflected in those reserves. Those millions of dollars are going to be gone. And so when we go out to the end of next school year, our projection is that at the end of next school year, a year from now, end of June, we will take that reserve down to about 22.6, and that's going to be our leveling off point. And then again, this is, we just keep flying the plane. We change nothing about our trajectory and where we're going. By 24-25, when the cliff fully impacts us and we've changed nothing about our spending, we would be at around 7.69%, I believe is that number from way across the room. 49, thank you, 7.49. So that's if we don't change our trajectory. Good news, we are going to change our trajectory and we have time to do it. So I'm just saying it's important to acknowledge where we would be going if we didn't look far ahead. And believe me, it has taken a lot of work to get at these numbers and feel confident in them. Jack will be here a little later tonight as our new board treasurer. He's probably really sick of looking at those reports. I think we gave him about 100 pages of those reports and spent some time going through that this week. But we feel really good about these numbers. Certainly Carol Embry has been helpful in digging into that with all these COVID inflationary things. It's added a lot of numbers to the bottom line. Okay, where does that shortfall come from? Again, we had millions in ESSER, just in ESSER, around $8 million. We had that fire money, which I forgot to mention, about $2.5 million. And these other things I've already alluded to, so I won't read them again unless I haven't said them. Classroom Trust Fund is one of our major revenue sources. That'll drop off post-COVID provision about $500,000 there. And then diesel costs. I thought you'd find this interesting or appalling. If we go back to the 1920 school year, we were spending around $102,000. I'd been looking at the 2021 and getting about 40, and I've remembered, oh, we weren't in school half of that year. 102,000 is what you're looking at for diesel costs in 1920. As we look at the increases over the last couple of years, we are budgeting 279,000 in diesel costs for next year. So fuel has gone up a lot. So all of those are the things you've got to factor in when you're looking at where you think your reserve's going to get. And I think it's a great practice before you make salary recommendations. Our free and reduced, that number is incorrect. 50 was 70. I'm sorry, I meant to correct that and I missed it. I apologize. 70 to 30 is what we got to. The total shortfall, if we change nothing, $2 million, 87,560. So what do we have to do to change that? Free and reduced, we are working really hard. Ms. Townsend does a great job. She manages a lot of that area for us. We're going to push really hard that we get more of those forms filled out. We already have. We think we're at we don't think we're confident. It's just not confirmed by DESE yet and won't be until June, that we're at well over 50% current school year, up from 30, which is where that typo came from before, sorry. The savings from Butterfield still is not realized until 2025 as all of that stuff that contributes to that happens, like closing buildings, reducing electricity, attrition, et cetera. And then looking at number 4, don't forget attrition, which again is meaning that as we have people leave, resign, retire, in positions that we can fill with people we already have because we're reducing buildings, we fill spots with the people we have as opposed to hiring new. So by fall of 2023, our attrition that I'm certain of right now is $420,000 by fall of this year. So when you're looking for $2 million, between that and free and reduced, we're at about $1.4 million recovered already. And everything else is we're $500,000 away from the goal, and it's coming. So what will it be from fall of 24, fall of 25? I don't like to predict what hasn't happened yet, because to let attrition work, you have to just let it work. But it's off to a really good start. Insurance is high, so is fuel. Forgive me. So we've got to give a huge focus to seeing if we could find a better benefits package, and better doesn't just mean cheaper. In fact, it's a direct contradiction of that. So we've got a lot of work to do on that next year, looking at benefits packages, hoping for better price and then perhaps better quality. Is that out there? We don't know. Both are certainly important. And then recruitment and fuel. If they don't subside, could we explore more options if savings are needed? Yes, there's a lot of things we could talk about, but we're actually not that far off of finding the savings we're looking for. Okay, so now let the pinball start to jump unless you have any questions. I'm going to jump southeast and come back full circle if that's okay. We had our community forum last week, and staff or board members have seen the results of that survey. I put together just a very, very brief summary of what we learned from that roughly 60 responses. Number one thing that we learned from our community and staff that they do not want is for it to sit empty or be another blighted property. So that's what we know they do not want. Number one thing that they do want is a little more complicated. I've highlighted there, using the space as apartments. That's the number one thing they do want. But what kind of apartments? There's a lot of different answers there, and some of them contradict each other. And that has led to the deed restrictions you see in front of you and recommendations. These are by no means complete. We are not voting on these tonight. This is for the Board of Education to see and the public to see, for us to talk and think about. And in June, would like to come to you with deed restrictions based on that input and discussion. Any questions about that? Relevant to stick right in the middle of my financial cliff, hopefully, because it relates to some more of that savings that I didn't mention. On the other side of this financial cliff, we're going to be closing 3 100-year-old buildings. We're going to have less staff, and we hope by doing that we're going to be doing that through attrition, where no staff isn't here that wanted to be. They moved on because it was in their life's plans, their family's plans, but it's going to save money. 83% of our budget and 80% of about any public school entity is salaries. So we're going to become more efficient, and most of those numbers are not numbers we're grabbing and speculating about. And another thing that makes me think there's light at the end of the tunnel, light on the other side of this, is that the state is going to have to look at their funding formula. The secretary, the assistant deputy, or I think it's deputy secretary of DESE, Mr. Monse said a week ago at Moasbo's breakfast, there's certainly something they're going to have to do because the funding formula is going to fall short in the next couple of years and a lot of people are going to be in trouble. But we're not going to count chickens before they hatch, as my grandma used to say. But we're not alone in that. Another jump here of the pinball machine in regard to some funding, safety, and security. We have applied for a grant that the governor released a couple of weeks ago, a month ago maybe at most. Moved pretty quickly, and the deadline was pretty fast, and we were one of the lucky ones. We received the full grant that we applied for of $200,000 to be used for safety and security. In applying for the grant, we said we would explore options like school resource officer, secure access doors, and that covers both exterior doors and interior doors. It was pretty wide open for access points and access technology and SROs. Will we be able to do all of the three of those things with $200,000? Not even close, but we can get a good start as we prioritize the needs, and that should be helpful. I'm going to show you another quick presentation from Z-Lock in a minute. It'll be as quick as I can go, but Z-Lock's going to be the recommendation I make for the interior door locking mechanism. There's a lot more work on the secure access, which is a key card that our building lacks. That came up in our community survey about safety and security, that we didn't have secure vestibules and technology on our doors. That really falls into some things I'll talk about here in a little bit, which leads me to have to introduce an acronym for you that I can never get right. The MOEOP, Missouri Emergency Operations Plan. There's going to need to be a safety committee organized this fall to get into the details of things like secure access and the emergency plans themselves. These Z-Lock mechanisms are a separate matter than that for me, because in my recommendation, I think we just need a way to lock those interior doors as soon as possible when the kids come back in the fall. Z-Lock's $13,585. Two others of three have prices of $42,067. Price isn't everything, but it certainly has to be a part of the consideration, and I'm going to speak a lot more to this for your questions. I just wanted to cover that really quickly. And while I say that, if you want to start asking questions about that, I'll have Wesley queue up this other quick PowerPoint about that. Take any questions you have, and I'll wrap it up. This is not my PowerPoint. I'm sharing it from the folks at Z-Lock. It's 15 slides. I don't intend to go through all 15 of them, but I don't want to go faster than what you want me to. So please stop, slow me down, or ask questions if you'd like. But I want to show the public and the board what it looks like. So again, forgive me if I'm going fast. These are, in short, they're a lockdown device designed to close doors quickly and in seconds. It's in addition to door locking mechanisms, which many of our doors in the district lack. I wanted to get to what they look like. They're very simple in design. They're about, it's $45 a door is what these cost, and they will install them. I don't remember if that's $10 more or not.
Wesley, excuse me.
Sorry.
There's no way that the people tuned in can see this, or are you able to stream this to them?
Yeah, they're able to see this.
Are they
His
able-
question was, can the people at home see
Okay,
them?
good.
Yeah.
That was my question. Good, because we've seen it and known that. If they're seeing it, they'll have a better idea what we're talking about.
I apologize. This is my second month that spring allergies have been one of the worst springs I've ever had. I apologize for that. Here's what it looks like installed from the inside of the door versus the outside of the door. There's a couple of ways that can go. One can involve bolts with nuts on it. Some they can do it with smooth bolt heads on the outside in the hall or not. There's some discussion there. But just really simple, locks the door. It's easy even under duress. And again, it's thousands of dollars cheaper. Here's the back side of the door, meaning what you'd see in the hallway. What it looks like when it's stowed away. And a lot of schools that have used this, I asked what they do about losing them when some kid carries them off. A lot of schools have just simply tied them to the mechanism to make it a little harder for them to walk out the door, but you can also order replacements.
Chain on it.
Here's some of your competitors. There's a lot of competitors out there, a lot of benefits and different things. The thing about this one, I think it's probably one of the strongest. Now I've never used that particular one. The thing about it is it mounts into the floor. My concern for that, one, is that we install it ourselves, and two, how many of our older buildings have asbestos that we'd be drilling through to install it? So I would have a concern about going into the floor for our older buildings that we're putting these in, because that bid proposal was for all buildings next year, even though some of them are going to be closed in a few years. Some of those buildings can't be secured right now. And I think it's worth a few $1,000s to potentially protect a life.
So we'll put them in the older buildings and then take them with us when we come
Then they would be something we can take with us. We could reuse, working with Insight Design, as opposed to some of these things that are a little more specific to doors. That image on the right is one I've also worked in schools that had. It doesn't work on interior swinging doors, so that eliminates its reusability. And the other one's got the string. It's pretty effective. It's just a little unsightly. That's just another look at the same device as compared to this device. So its size, it's a little bulky. $10 a door, they install it for us. What I like about it is we could have it by the first day of school installed and ready. Now, making that part of a great emergency plan, training and collaborating, there's still a ton of work to be done. This is just simply what I see as preemptive work to good safety and security plans moving forward. List of schools that have also used it. That's not a comprehensive one, but it's a lot. Some feedback from administrators. I won't read all that to you verbatim. And that is it. Any questions that you all have for me?
Do you want to have the conversation about the door locks now, or do you want to save it for later, for new business, when we're going to vote on it?
We can do that too, if you want to wait till we get to new business and discuss it.
Doesn't make any difference to me.
Yeah. If there's any other just general questions why I can show you any images, I'd be glad to do that, and then we can discuss it more when we vote.
I genuinely don't know when the best place to have that conversation is.
Okay.
I mean, we can get into the details now. We'll be rehashing them again later.
Yeah.
Might as well jump into it now. So I appreciate getting some of the input that at least I had requested. I don't know if you heard back from any other board members, but after last month's meeting, but I know that during the meeting we had quite a few questions. Some of that included houses being used in other districts, what's their feedback been. I understand that what we just saw is a PowerPoint from the vendor of choice, your vendor of choice. And so what we're getting is, I dare say, biased from their perspective, right? I think we can fairly say that. I also appreciate that Mr. Woodring went out and got our own bids and did some of the legwork around that. I appreciated, I think I probably speak for others that say, I appreciated having more than just the one option. It still seemed like this is the option you want to go with, to the exclusion of others. It's fine. We can look at the data and make our own, see if we have any questions, concerns. And I understand that your previous experience with this lock is such that you do feel like it is a good thing to have. I understand that. One of the things that I communicated to you and to Mr. Jakes was that I wanted to know what the implementation plan would be, because there are so many locks like this on the market. I mean, they can go into the floor, they can append to the door itself, they can append to the hardware. There's lots of different options. So the question really becomes, I don't want to quite so easily hand wave away what the plan is about them, right? Because for me, from the position of thinking about this, safety and security things are always more a matter of implementation than theory, right? So the implementation does matter. The continuing education about and training plan does matter. But more to the point, I also asked if I had said to you prior to this meeting, several days before this meeting, we need to get input from fire, police, and emergency management. Have we done that? Have they looked not just at the mechanism, and not just considered the price point, have they also looked at the implementation plan and had any input into what that looks like?
Yeah. So I hadn't personally, Mr. Jakes had graciously assisted me with that a little bit this afternoon. I know that the
He
police.
talked to police.
Yes.
And Chief Donnell expressed that he thought it was a good idea and that he supported the district in getting these locks. I asked if we had contacted the other two who are our partners in providing safety and security to our students and our staff in the buildings, right? Because I am not the expert. I'm not an expert in safety and security issues. They are, and we're going to need their help. And I would love to know what they think about the implementation plans and if they would be involved in helping us to train, anything like that. And if they're going to be looking at these locks. When he talked to a contact, when Mr. Jakes talked to a contact at fire department, I do not know whom, that individual said that as a representative of fire, they would not be willing to say that they endorse this specific product, though they support the district in getting something along these lines. From my perspective, it takes integrity to say that. It takes integrity to say, I'm not going to just endorse something I have not looked into the details of myself. And what good am I as a board member if I do not also stand in my integrity and say, until we've had fire and emergency management also sign off on this specific product and our plans for implementing it, I'm not excited about voting yes for it.
Yeah, and I understand that. I think there's a lot of time constraints with it, although, you know.
But we have been rushed. We have been told that we have to do this quickly. And I
Yeah.
spoke with you days ago about trying to get in contact with would we be
Yeah.
able to get in contact with these people?
I understand.
I understand that time is an issue, and if time is an issue, then I will be moving to table this when we get to that point in this order of business.
Okay, and that's completely understandable. And any other questions along those lines, I welcome. I think my recommendation just comes from empathy for our parents and hoping that we have a way to lock those doors.
And I do
first day of
not
school.
wish to be seen as somebody who is not empathetic to the safety and security concerns of the community. I am so concerned about that I want to make sure that our partners in implementing that have had their chance to have input on it as well.
I understand.
And I reject the notion that I am here naysaying this because I do not care and am not interested in providing for the safety and security of the staff and students, our loved ones, our community members in these buildings.
I understand. Any other questions from anybody?
I've got a positive observation on the other thing while we're talking about your report. We're talking about your report. I was scared when I saw these numbers, but when I looked through the one that you had on the slide coming down here, that funding and reserve on, that because we're, in other words, we're not looking at going broke, belly up, because we're just looking at spending reserves down to almost nothing. So that, I mean, that's not a positive, but it no longer scared the daylights out of me, as when I was looking at the spreadsheet this afternoon on my computer, trying to figure out where we're gonna be 2 or 3 years down the road. So-
And I think it is, it's not a position you want to be in, so I feel
No.
encouraged that as a board, you did approve that our goal reserve would be 20%. So showing that, okay, we're getting to a point, that would be getting to a point that we aren't comfortable with. My sincere hope, but you can project the future, but you can't predict it. I really hope that we don't go there. I'm just wanting to show, that means some tightening of the belts, and there will be a lot of conversations with staff and the public. And I just want to show, we're not asking for sacrifice for the sake of sacrifice, but rather for where we're going to be down the road. So
I was on a committee one time when I guess it was the CTA, when we did spend, I don't know if you were here then, Roger, we were down into the 1% and 2% range and scared.
yeah, it's
Well,
very scary.
The Vegas term was betting on the come,
Yes.
and we survived, so that was a positive. A negative on a positive on a negative, I guess, is the best way
Yeah.
you can say it.
Yeah, thank you.
Anybody else have any other?
That's another thing, I really appreciated this, so easy to follow.
That's thanks to Ms. Reno. We'll start doing that for you. Should have thought of it a lot sooner,
Thank you.
so.
All right, next up is Assistant Superintendent, Mr. Rinky.
Okay, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
All right, for my report tonight, I have a few things to cover. So what's going on in my world and throughout the district. So I'm going to have some updates on some projects we've been working on throughout the district. The last month I talked about some different bids we were sending out, some different RFPs, and I have those back, so I want to present those tonight and take any questions, and then they'll be on the agenda for approval later if you so do to choose. And then also Aaron Hardy's here with Insight Design, so we'd like to talk about a few things with our construction manager at risk method versus the hard bid method, and just give the board and the community a little update of where we're all at, not only with our long range planning, but the planning of the new 3 through 5 building, and then other safety and security things throughout the entire district that he will help me with. And he has a little presentation here too. So just some updates on some things that are going on. We've been working on, this is the old central office, which will become the new alternative school remodel. This is actually coming along a little slower than I wanted to, but it is making progress. Part of the reason we are down a couple maintenance people, so they've been working on it, and then we have to get pulled off quite a bit when HVAC and everything else breaks. So hopefully we can make some progress on that throughout the summer. But 2 rooms are pretty much completely done. We got to put some paint. So the Butterfield project is really coming along great. Like I reported the last couple months, I'm happy with the way things are going. I would say 80% of the flooring is done. So the flooring guys and Chris they're moving right along. We actually our crew has got in there today, started mopping floors, prepping floors, and they're going to start waxing everything in the parts that are done. And then so we can get ahead of the game, and then all we have to come back through is and do the baseboard. So that's coming along very well. Some other things that are going on that we'll talk about probably in the next couple months. High school, we have a hot water heater, one of the big hot water heaters we're going to have to replace. So we've been working on that. The Saline County Career Center HVAC that has 1 unit on the top, we're going to convert the refrigeration system from, we're going to have to change the gas that they use for that. We've been working on the Spainhauer HVAC system, doing some repairs to that to keep the AC going. Then just overall preparing for summer district moves, and then summer school routes we've been working on. So those summer school routes are going to be ready by the time, before the kids go home for the summer. So if they're coming to summer school, they'll know what their routes will be. So that's kind of some of the things in a nutshell what's been going on. So moving into some bids. Okay, so I think I have 4 bids for you to bring tonight. The first one, we put out a bid for a van for the social work team. This is some funds that we want to use with the American Rescue Plan. It's the Homeless and Children and Youth Grant. So we need to spend some of that money. The social work team uses a car right now, and they thought it would be a lot more efficient for them, and with what they're doing and hauling, if we could purchase a van with some of those funds. So we did put it out locally and on the website. We received 2 bids back from Marshall Chrysler, both from the same dealership. The first one was for a new 2023 Chrysler Pacifica Touring. This is a brand new vehicle for $43,420 with a 3-year, 36,000-mile warranty, 5-year, 60,000 powertrain. The second they put a bid on, it is a used vehicle. It has over 61,000 miles on it for $36,971. It does have a warranty, but it doesn't have the full powertrain. So when we get to into the board, I'm going to recommend buying since we have the funds through the grant, I'm going to recommend buying the new the new 2023 for $43,420. Does anybody have any questions on that one? Okay. The second bid that we put out, so with us going with Southeast, the district getting rid of that building, there's that playground equipment. And some of that playground equipment that is there is really nice. There's the big one in the back. It's a piece of Miracle equipment. That's the manufacturer of it. I would say probably to buy that new, approximately is about $150,000, just that piece of equipment. So this is, we went out for bids and I had received one back. So there's 4 pieces of equipment we would like to keep as a district over there. It's the big set of equipment, and there's 2 swing sets, and then there's what they call the 4-way funnel ball piece of equipment. And we would like to move that from Southeast out here to Spainhauer. So to move all that equipment, to pull it out of the ground, and then move it, and then reinstall it, which is the big thing, they put a bid in for $43,750. And I think you're money ahead to be able to spend that money instead of buying new equipment. Third bid that we put out for, with the high school and making the old central office the alternative school, that school will also have a credit recovery aspect inside of it. So there's going to be students that are constantly walking back and forth to that credit recovery if they need that program, and then going back into the regular high school. I feel we should put a sidewalk, and I'm talking with the administration to have that sidewalk between that building and the high school. So to run that, an ADA sidewalk, ADA compliant sidewalk, it's approximately 320 feet from the parking lot behind there to the one door, be $14,000. We only received one bid in on that, and that I'm going to recommend to take that bid. The fourth, does anybody have any questions on that one? Okay. The last bid I have bringing to you tonight, or on the action item, is for the resealing and striping of the Butterfield campus parking lot. I feel that it's in pretty good shape, but we have to maintain it so it does not. It's starting to look a little rough, and I don't want it to get to the point of some of our other parking lots. So let's get it resealed and resealed and restriped and take care of it. So put this out for bid. We received three bids back. The first bid we received was from Murphy Seal Coating in Clarksburg, Missouri, in the amount of $13,981.60. The second bid we received back was from Cracks out of Marshall, Missouri, in the amount of $13,941. And the third bid we received back for the sealing and striping of that parking lot is from Everline Coatings and Services out of Hamilton, Missouri, in the amount of $17,380.94. I would recommend that we go with the lowest bid in Cracks in Marshall, Missouri, to get that work done.
I do have some questions along these lines, if you've got a moment.
Yep.
Why this parking lot right now? How does it compare to some of our other parking lots? I'm hearing Ellen Lance in the back of my head saying that this is something that we should have been doing for other parking lots too. So
Completely
is
agree.
this just because central office is moving out there?
No, I don't think
Why?
so. I completely agree with you. But some of our other parking lots, to fix some of those, like the high schools,
I see.
it's going to take, we're talking a lot of work. And we're going to have to develop that plan. Completely 100% agree with you. Like we were talking about the high school parking lot, we're going to have to start chunking or doing that in bits, because the price is going to be, it's going to be a lot of money to get some of those fixed. Same thing, so there's some issues at Beaker in that parking we're going to have to address. I think for right now, it's not a central office, but that parking lot is in, it's in okay shape,
Okay.
but let's take care of it before we have to spend the $50, $100, $200,000 to fix it. So that's why I'm coming to you with this one. And then I need to get back to work and make some plans for the other ones.
It sounds like those are more complicated, kind of bigger plans, and probably something that's going to get on a list that Insight Design hands to us some days.
That would be correct, yes. So they're gonna take a lot more funding stream that we're gonna have to be creative to get those ones fixed.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Is there any more questions on those? Okay. So, and if you have any questions when we get to the agenda, that would be great. Okay, so moving forward on to our next step, and I'm gonna call Aaron Hardy up from Insight Design. So we're kind of at that point. He's on the agenda to speak. We're gonna kind of tag team this a little bit tonight, if that's all right. Oh, hold on, Wesley, go back real quick, could you please? So one thing you will find in your board packet and in your agenda tonight, as an action item that I want to be clear on, is you will see a contract approval to move forward with Insight Design for the architectural phrase of the project. And you're like, well, we already did a contract with Insight Design, and we did that for the long-range facility plan. And then there was, in that contract, it was like to move forward with if we passed the levy and we were able to do it, to go with Insight Design. But now it's kind of the next step of the project. So that's what that's in there for. And if you have any questions, we can ask Aaron, because he probably knows a little bit more about that than I do. But no, it will be, so that's going to be one of the things if you have questions on that. And then we're going to talk about one of the big things tonight you will see on your agenda also as an approval item is we need to talk about, brought this up last month, the construction manager at risk method versus the hard bid method as we're moving forward. So there's some pros and cons to each of those methods, and for the board and for the community, I just want to make sure we put that all out there before we decide which route we want to go with all the construction that will be coming through Marshall Public Schools here. So do you want to flip to your presentation?
Well, I can talk to some of these points.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'll talk to the construction management side first, just to give you some information on that. So I know it's an action item later, and this is the first step for this selection process. It is, you're not hiring anybody tonight. You're not making an action to commit to construction management. It's part of the state statute for the procurement methods. It just says it goes onto a board agenda. It's discussed openly, and you have opportunity for public comment and feedback like that. So all we're doing tonight is making the decision to go out for an RFQ, just like you would make a decision to go out for an architect. You're just saying, yeah, let's do it. And so that's kind of where the process is tonight. Just to go over some of the pros and cons, and you've never seen me with a notebook before. I usually kind of ad-lib all this stuff, but I had someone send me information, and I don't want to misquote them. I asked, what are the pros and cons for Marshall? And it's our office director who'd be running this job. So in this particular case, we're really going to make it a point, and we actually have a really big opportunity to get some local involvement with some of the construction pieces. We have some major manufacturers of construction components in town, and we'd like to find the best way to use them as much as possible. Having an expert in construction and someone who deals with those folks on that side on the team early will help us best integrate their products or give them the best opportunity to bid on those. They can also work with local subs ahead of time to understand what packages might be interested from local participants and how they can package scopes of work so that they have the best opportunity to get some of that work. Maybe there's somebody's specialty is some carpentry and some of this and that, and they can package something where they can come in and offer a bid on that and be competitive with somebody who might be coming in from out of town. We want to make sure they have that opportunity. So it does allow that if we go this direction. You have more input on the selection of subs. So when you get the bids, every scope will have a list of subs that submitted numbers on it. And it's all open book. And you'll be able to see everybody who submitted a bid. And a lot of times, you go with the lowest bidder, as long as they're responsible. I've been in districts where they see the low bidder and their response is, why are they still bidding on this? They've sued us before. They know they'll never work with us again. If you hard bid a project, that person's on the job. You don't get any control over your subs. In this case, you might have someone who's maybe slightly bit higher than the next low bidder, but you have previous experience with the low and maybe they've change ordered you before, or they're a problem, or they can't hit the schedule. You have the opportunity to vet that out and make decisions based more on qualifications and money for each component in there. More often than not, we're going with the low bidder in each package, but it gives you a chance to at least review that information and see who's part of the team. When you hard bid a project, you know, the general contractor submits you a bid on bid day, and the subs they're carrying are the subs that are in that bid. And you don't really get to know who all those are until after you approve their contract. So that's one of the pros of construction management. Other things, which pre-COVID, scheduling wasn't so much of an issue. Post-COVID, you never know what's gonna be delayed. You know, it's kinda like the delay du jour. Switch gears, 60 weeks all of a sudden. Okay. You know, wasn't that before. Or it could be anything. So having somebody who can help with scheduling up front, and we can issue packages early before the full design is done. If we have some components ready to go, we can order those things ahead of time to make sure that they're arriving in the construction sequence when they need to be there. And then they'll do estimating. They can do proactive estimating, so we're not reacting on bid day and trying to make changes if we come in a little bit over budget or anything like that. They can help us up front, and we can plan accordingly to know where we're standing. And then just having that expert on the team up front to rely on, like any of us or our engineers, those sort of things. So the cons, and I'm sure they're listening right now because they know this is on the agenda, all the CMs. Sometimes the perception is they could cost more, a little bit. At the end of the day, sure, you're probably gonna pay a service up front, their pre-construction fee. I mean, it could be $20,000, $50,000. I mean, it can range, and they'll tell you that as part of the selection process, what that fee is gonna be. But really, you're getting value back, or the idea is you're getting value back. When it comes down to bid day, you're still getting a lot of the same subs that you would anyway. All of their costs that are associated with doing the work and being on the job site would be included in a general contractor anyway. So, and you'll be able to see that in their submissions. They'll lay out all those costs. And when they do their submissions, they will break down all the different costs that are associated with what it costs to run the job site, what the fees and costs are to run their office, and the project managers and everybody that's associated with that. So you'll be able to see all that breakdown, and you'll be able to compare that between the construction managers and have that to consider as well. And we'll help you kind of vet through that and understand how they're all comparing against one another when that selection comes. So again, tonight, the question is really just, do we go out for an RFQ? Assuming we say yes, we'll work through the rest of that, get it scheduled, issued, work through the matrices on how we're gonna score them, and set a committee up to review all that information, and then come back in another month or month and a half with probably a recommendation moving forward. So that is the construction manager spiel. As for our contract, we don't do a full-blown contract as part of the long-range planning side of thing, a full AIA contract. It's just the industry standard architectural contract. It's really a letter of understanding and a proposal phase. Once the scope's identified, so in this case, the bond issue passed or the levy passed, everything's kind of defined a little bit more. So this is the full-blown thing that just has all the agreements tied to it. And I think it went through legal, your side. They're pretty boilerplate. So that's what's before you today. So now I'm ready for the PowerPoint, if you want. Now I don't need my notes anymore. I'm good. So since the passage of the levy, which is my first time here since then, congratulations, and congratulations to you on getting on the board. And you're right, you're the new one.
Me?
Yeah, you're the new one. I'm like, I know everybody else, but. So we've had some meetings at central office just to kind of organize ourselves and get rolling. But we also engaged our staff. And almost right away, we sent a survey out to the elementary staff. And we say the word set, that's probably like the 10th time we've talked about surveys in this meeting already. I'm sure they've been surveyed to death. But we asked them 5 questions. And they were longer than this. They were, kind of a little more specific to their building. But really, we wanted to understand these 5 components. And it was, what is value now? Like really, what do you have now that you couldn't live without in a new building? A lot of these are really about culture, things like that. You don't get a whole lot of stuff about the existing building. There's things like, I love my windows that I have, or some things like that. But that's usually the feedback we get. But then we broke down some other questions about, what do we need to make sure that everybody is supported? And everybody is the community, the students, the teachers. What does this building have to be supportive of education and to be supportive of the community? Then what do you need to effectively instruct? And then we flipped it and said, what do kids need to effectively learn? And then the most important question that we used to understand how we need to navigate the next couple of months is, what is needed to succeed? And if you, okay. So we have 45 total responses or responders, and then 248 total responses between the 5 categories. So quite a bit of information. And when you break it all down, you get all kinds of comments, and people were saying the same thing, slightly different, things like that. But you can see these greens; those are like the top 5 of each category, 5 or 6. And there was a few that kind of transcended categories, and that's technology, classroom flexibility, furniture, like flexible furniture, things like that, very tangible things. What's interesting is the first 4 are all kind of the same grouping of things up at the top, but that last one I talked about, what does it take to succeed? Most of those had to do with transparency, staff involvement in design, listen to the teachers, things like that. But it tells us we need to make sure that this is a very involved process with our staff and make sure that they're involved and have a lot of say in how this building comes together. So we met with them yesterday, and we invited them, and we had about 25 staff come by. They gave us their time after school. They volunteered it, so very appreciative of what they gave us. But we went through some summaries of what we took away from this information, and we showed them that we broke this down into 2 different kind of buckets of information. There are things that we can control as designers to make sure that we can get into a building, and there are things that we cannot put into a building, but we need to make sure that a building can support. So I kicked this into like the district level conversation, things that the district should be thinking about as we plan this building, and work through those items to make sure that, what does this mean to you? How are you going to implement these? And then we can make sure that we have a facility that supports each one of those. So some of those are, what kind of technology will go into the building? What do the student devices look like? What are the ratio targets we're trying to hit for student to teachers? How do we set goals and teamwork within the staff? This is kind of a staff goal thing. How do you make sure you have enough time with students, and so on. Those are some of the things that came from them on that level. So those are things that our building will support, but it's a conversation that has to happen at a higher level outside of the design team. The next list is a little bit longer, and it starts to get a little bit more detailed. So you can see these are things that we were told that for this building to be effective and a success, we need to make sure that we can tackle a lot of these things in our design process. And what we do with this list is we continue to vet it down. Every time I meet with staff, we'll prioritize, we'll kind of condense it, clarify things, but it goes to the design team to make sure that every option that they're working through is satisfying as many of these goals as possible. And we use it as a sense of accountability on our part when we're making design decisions to fact check it against these goals to make sure that we are supporting them in some way. And then we come back to the teachers, and our options will show which ones we think we're achieving, which ones maybe we think we're falling down on, and what their interpretation of those are, whether we are or not achieving them as we work our way through the process. So you can see most of them, and I don't want to read them all, but the big winners were like flexible furniture and functional spaces. So things that we need to deep dive with them to understand what do they mean by that. I think we made it a big point yesterday that we know what we don't know. We do not teach. I'm not going to come in here and tell you how you're going to teach in this room. I like to come in and tell you the features that might be in this room and how we envision it being used, but how would you use this space? And then we react from there to see if we're hitting the mark. So that goes through almost probably 90% of those. We'll take a stab at what that means and then come back and see if it's working, we'll keep going forward, and if it's not, we'll back off. But there's things about outdoor learning spaces, a lot of hands-on and STEM kind of comments that came in, just some different types of learning that's happening inside of the space. Communication and transparency made both lists. And I think that's important that as a design team, we are also transparent to the teams, to the staff and the district on why we're doing things in the building, and that's communicated through and everybody understands why we're doing those things. So that was the first thing they went through. We didn't get a whole lot of feedback in terms of prioritization. There wasn't many objections. Everybody seemed to be agreeable to the list that was there, but we'll continue to bring this up as we work our way through the process to kind of keep coming up on every presentation as something we lead in with. After that, and I don't have the results of this yet, we put 6 boards of pictures up there, and I'll just kind of click through them. So they're broken down by learning spaces. So these are some of these buildings we designed. Some of these buildings came out of national magazines. Some of these are from our competitors. It's just about finding nice spaces that we think are nice, and they're all different. Some are like highly complex and decorative spaces. Some are very simple and straightforward and clean. There's a mix of things, and we wanted to understand from the staff what speaks to them. And we gave them stickers because architects like to come in and give people stickers so they can put things on walls and things. So we gave everybody really 2 stickers per board. They had 12 total stickers, and they could pick what speaks to them. And they were broken down by inside and outside. So we had some learning spaces, shared spaces, so your commons or media centers and those sort of places. Your active spaces, a lot of gyms, maybe STEM labs, laboratory kind of space, hands-on learning spaces. And it's kind of interesting, like a lot of the same dots go in the same gym, and they all kind of look the same. So now we're left with going, okay, what was it that they liked about that one? Like, okay, I think was it the natural light? Was it the wood floor? Was it was it the colors? So those are the things we'll come back and so what we'll do is we'll come back and we'll shrink this list down to all the favorites, and then we'll say, so why do you like these? Like, and then here's some things we're thinking why, and try to get that confirmed as we work our way through. It's too big of an exercise to have them pick and then short list and comment on all in one meeting. And then we went through outdoor spaces. So some of these had some play spaces, different types of learning environments outside, and different opportunities for those. We had some school buildings, or two boards of school buildings. So these are just outdoor aesthetics. What is a building? What does a good building in Marshall look like to you? Like, what do you think fits into the community? What do you think stimulates students the right way? Those kind of things. So we got a lot of feedback on that. This was definitely the most exciting part of the exercise. Nobody wanted to hear me talk for the first 10 minutes, but it got really exciting for the next 30 when they got to go. A lot of communication between the staff, and I think there was some negotiating on where they should put their stickers, but it went really well from that aspect.
Which ones did they kind of lean to? Did you not know?
I have to remember. I think it'll show up. This one here had some stickers, and these two really had quite a few. And what they're keying in on was the outdoor entry canopies and the coverings that would go over it. There was where did that one go? There's this one up here in this corner, and it's really hard to see, but it's almost a completely enclosed play space with the only thing that's open is right here. This must be kind of a warmer environment, but nice enough to play outside in. So they almost have a completely enclosed hard play area. There's some people there's people on both sides kind of had bad opinions of it and good opinions of it. I had a gym teacher with me. I'm like, but man, imagine if all these could close and you could make that indoor and you had basketball hoops on each side. It's like your gym most of the time, but then you could open it up and then have all your outdoor space right there too.
There's the flexible word again.
There's a flexible,
Yeah.
multi-purpose, making sure that spaces are function for where their intended use, but in a flip of the switch, you can change its use all around. On the inside, I didn't get a good chance to key in on exactly. I know it's this gym up here in the corner was the one that got a lot of dots. There's a big window on the back side. It's got a big shiny wood floor. Maybe that's what was speaking to him. I'm not sure. So we'll have to deep dive that a little bit. But my big takeaway though is a lot of the dots were on very modest appearing spaces, and I don't mean that as like a bad thing. They were just very clean, functional, and just highly effective spaces. The ones that seem to have a lot of adornments and decorations, like a bunch of ceiling stuff going on and all kinds of stuff on the walls, they kind of shied away from those, and that's okay. I mean,
Yeah,
that could
remember where they're coming from. too.
Yeah. So,
From
but
southeast.
it tells us how we need to be thinking about this. It's very deliberate moves, making sure we have a lot of functionality in the building. Everything that they did like had natural light coming into it, whether they're high windows that flooded the space with light. That was another common theme. So things that we're going to really focus in on when we start designing that. So in 2 weeks, we're going to go back to them. Not to them, anybody can come. So we're going to do it again. We'll have staff at one time and then do a community one in the evening as well. This one will have a little bit more information. This is where we'll trim down this. We'll apply some boards so people can go and write some thoughts on. We won't focus too much on it as part of the presentation, but we'll come back with some learning space diagrams to try to get some response on how teachers might see themselves teaching in spaces. And we'll present a couple of options on how classrooms can be set up and which ones speak to them the most. We'd love to be able to look at some site plan diagrams. It's turning out to be a bigger task. Not unsolvable, just a lot of stuff to look at with the traffic flow. So we're going to try to get some ideas on that, but at least have some preliminary ideas about how those images that they selected, how those might translate into space that's for them. And maybe say, this could be your classroom. Is this the kind of space you're thinking is good? Or this could be the hallway space, or the commons, or the gym. Select a few key areas and try to elicit some response on those, on whether we're going in the right direction. After that, we probably lose a lot of staff's attention and community's attention because summer starts, and it's really hard. Even with everybody's best interests, you have a lot of things going on. We will continue to engage people as much as we can over the summer, and try to be as creative and flexible as we can on when we come up to do these presentations. But the idea is that our schematic design phase, it would be complete sometime in the middle of summer, maybe the middle of July. And that's something that we would engage the board with too, to sit down ahead of that and have a work session with you, or give you a chance to respond on where you think the design's going and making sure we're on the same page. At the end of schematic design, it's really, it's a hardline diagram set. It has a lot of technical information in there. Our engineers spend a lot of time with the facility folks, and they're starting to pick out some like general systems, plumbing fixture ideas, you know, those kind of detailed things. But most of the architectural side is floor plan diagrams, programs, finishes, and renderings, just very graphical things so people can get their heads around it. For the next 2 months after that is when the architectural side becomes more detailed, and we work through a lot of the detailing and technical pieces of things. So the idea is that in that phase, we'll have a chance to get back in front of staff when school starts back up and get them signing off on the plans as well. So give them another chance, even if they can't come to something over the summer, we can still make changes in that phase, as long as it's not like, I wish the building was on the other side of town. You know, that would be like a big change. But, you know, if it's like, I need another office in the admin suite, or can we flip this to here and here? You know, those are things that can easily be accommodated. So we'll be able to take care of that. Get in front of you again in the fall, and then have everything out to bid before the end of the year and started construction. It keeps us right on track to have the building 100% ready to go in the fall of '25, which has kind of always been the idea. On the safety and security side, I was planning on doing another survey to everybody, and now I'm realizing they're probably getting surveyed to death. So I need to come up with an idea, or just do it. But it's something else. So there's a lot of safety and security thing that goes into it. I can walk into a building and give you my idea. So, well, do a vestibule here, and change those doors, and do that. And I think what's really important, just like designing a building, it's important to understand what safety and security means to everybody that's in each building. Because I think each building has its own culture. And I'm talking about the building, not the people. I think each building wants to be treated differently, and I think the people within that building have an idea of what would make that building safe. And work through that with them to understand what their priorities are. Like, if you could pick, what's the one thing you would do to make your building safer? You know, what is that? And we start creating that list of how we need to spend the money that's allocated towards it, to make sure that we're not spending some money on something that doesn't matter. You know, like, if it doesn't matter to anybody, I don't spend money on it. I want to make sure that we're working right down the list. So that's part of the process they're starting. It was covered earlier in an earlier conversation here about just getting the whole district plan put together. That is a much smaller scope. Those are things that will get caught back up to the rest of the plan. The building takes much longer, and we can roll it out district-wide as part of it. So during your conversation, I was doing some heavy texting with all of my office directors, like, what do you know about this product? What do you know? What do you know? You'll be hard-pressed to find a fire marshal that's going to approve really anything up there, because what it does is it eliminates the opportunity for exiting during a fire if it is engaged.
Yep.
It's highly unlikely that both of these scenarios are happening at the same time, but obviously that's why they'll never formally approve them, but that's
I would
part
still
of it.
like to have the conversation.
Yeah.
I don't think
I know,
it's
there is-
unreasonable to ask to have the
I know.
conversation. And
Yeah.
I don't think it's unreasonable
Yeah.
to sit down with
Yeah.
them and have that conversation, and at least have them be part of that
Absolutely.
implementation plan.
Yep, and I think it's part of this, and that's why we aren't going so fast on safety and security, because I think there's a couple of things, especially when we're spending big buckets of dollars on these things, to make sure we're implementing things in the right way and going about that. Was there? I think I got my whole page covered. Okay, so I just went through a lot of stuff. You guys know I talk fast, so please ask questions if there's anything else. And I'm gonna stick around for the CM conversation if you have questions then.
Eric, you lost me there on that. It says construction manager at risk
Yep.
method versus
General contractor, or?
hard bid
Hard bid,
method.
hard bid. Okay,
I
so,
didn't see, here's this advantages, here's this advantages, here's the disadvantage to
Yep.
each one. I
Yep.
didn't see a comparison in there.
I didn't put a formal one together. Let me run through, I talked about construction manager. Let me talk about hard bid and the methodology of that real quick. So, both of them, once a contract is signed for construction, whether it's hard bid, GC, or construction manager, they should operate essentially the same way contractually, right? Once the bids are all complete, once the building getting built will be built the same way. There used to be another construction management thing that we're not talking about. That was not, it's highly complicated for districts to manage. But in this scenario, once all the paperwork's signed, this is considered the same moving forward. CM is involved earlier, so those are the benefits I was talking about. A hard bid contractor on bid day historically, sometimes you would realize a little bit lower number on bid day. There's also a greater opportunity for change orders, and every little thing that changes in construction out in the field will come back to the district to be added as a change order. The construction manager works to mitigate that. That's where some of the cost differences come into play. Advantages of general contractors. If you have a large general contractor field in the area, you could get highly competitive bidding, which is good. Almost $30 million project that's 80 miles outside of a metropolis, you might only get one contractor to bid, because they have to be able to bond it, which means it comes down to their insurability and all those other things. You may only get one, maybe two, and so you lessen the compatibility of that on that side. Where if you go with the construction manager, you could pull from Columbia, Kansas City, Sedalia. There's some other ones all around here that will all come after you. You'll probably end up with 5 to 7 submittals, I imagine. You're rolling the dice. You talked about Dr. Monsess earlier. I did RAPEC with him. We went out to bid on a $27 million project in Kansas City. I got 4 bidders, and I had a fight to get 4 bidders. And you'd think something like that was a high school edition. You'd think you would have people coming out of the woodworks to bid this thing. And it was either too big for a lot of the contractors that they couldn't get the work done, or it was too small for the bigger ones to come bid. And it was right in this sweet spot where you didn't get a lot of competition. We ended up getting a great building out of it, and it worked out. But it was really nervous on bid day, wondering what we were going to get. There truly are some advantages to general contracting. It's the most familiar. I think a lot of especially if you have a local general that's going to work on it, your local subs are probably more likely to have a history with them, working with them. But again, you're relying on getting a local general contractor. In this case, you may still get somebody out of Kansas City, and you're relying on them to work with local subs, and they may have no history with them, and this could end up with some issues in the field. But I don't advocate towards one or the other. I think in this particular case, with some of the upfront involvement we want with local subs, I think CM has a little bit of advantage on that side. But no matter what the board decides to do, it's not going to hurt our feelings necessarily. So.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I can't get it depends on the situation, but I feel in this one it's at least worth hearing them out. Because they'll come in and give a dog and pony about how they're going to do things, how they'll engage local people, and if it doesn't feel good at that point, you just walk away from it and hard bid it. So.
Well, and you're also more likely to hit that on time, under budget mark with a construction manager rather than the hard bids, so.
Well, and I'll speak, sorry, I like to give examples. An example that we're just building North Platte High School, and that's when all the lead times were getting messed up. And they had to get dried in by a certain date to finish the building, and the roofing company they had on is the manufacturer. They couldn't get the screws or fasteners or whatever it was at the time. The CM was able to go back out and talk to folks, and we changed the entire roofing system in the middle of construction. And having that teammate on board that still was able to proactively work on that. Now, I'm not saying a general contractor wouldn't do that, but it's, just having it up front or kind of knowing what was going to happen. He kind of had something in their back pocket in case it did. And they were able to get dried in and open on time. And the other option was school didn't open, so that wasn't going to happen. So to your point, it does help having that on.
The construction manager, will they be on site quite a bit?
They are.
Or these
They
guys-
have a full-time superintendent or 2 on site. They'll have their field engineers. They have laborers. They operate just like the general contractor would.
So they'll be
once it's signed up.
overseeing when they're pouring concrete, they'll
Yeah.
be,
Yeah. Yep. They are the general contractor at that point. It's really before bid day that's different between these. So
we didn't have this on the last one, I don't think, did we? We had it,
On this one?
yeah, we went hard bid here.
Was it our bid? Yeah. The other one that I'm not recommending is agency, which is really as a manager, and they don't hold any of the contracts. You hold all the contracts with all the subs, so all the bills that you have to pay, you have to go through each one of those. We don't want that. At risk, you get one pay app, one thing to review. It's a lot easier.
Okay, Wesley, can you flip back to mine real quick? Please. So just to recap, tonight, when you get to that action item on your agenda, that just, according to our policy, that just allows us to send out the RFQ, to see what we can get back. And then we'll set up a committee, we'll include some board members in that, and then go through that interview process. And actually, to our policy, if you guys do approve that tonight, I don't know why, but we actually cannot send the RFQ out for 1 week, so I can't send it out till next Tuesday, according to our policy. I'm sure there's a reason somewhere for that, I just don't know it. So that's kind of where we're at, and like Aaron said, if we get to a point where like, well, we don't like any of these people through the interview committee, we can go the different direction and go back to the hard bid route. So this isn't locking us into anybody or anything, this is allowing us to just start that process to see what's there. So Aaron did a good job of updating where we are at, and then just want to recap, Aaron put this in there too. We will next Monday, May 22nd, we will have our second visioning meeting with our staff at 3:30 here at Spainhauer, and then we invite the community members to come in at 5:30 and talk to us and talk to Insight Design about what they think about the new building and moving forward. So, does anybody have any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Aaron, you don't have anything else that you need to, okay. All right. We're moving on to old business. We'll go over Southeast Elementary. Caleb, do you have more information?
Really quick update on this. So with Southeast Elementary, a lot of things cooking at once here, so forgive the continued pinballing, but what you can expect as we are following our policy is in the next month, we're going to, as a board with the administration, I'd like to continue discussing those proposed deed restrictions and getting input from everybody on that between now and the June meeting. And with those discussions by the June meeting, probably actually, to be honest, I probably need to have your input on deed restrictions, unfortunately, by the end of May, to give our local realtors a couple weeks, as we had discussed. And again, all this is trying to navigate our board policy. Our next steps, once the board has a good feeling of what it wants for the deed restrictions on that building based on the input from the community, is that we invite the realtors to submit their terms and contracts for all the realtors in our area that would like to have an opportunity to broker and sell that, and then when we come together for the June meeting, you would be approving both deed restrictions, the terms and contracts that come to you from any realtors that have interest, so we're kind of opening it up to everyone, and that allows them to then list the property for sale, and all of this is sort of the, not sort of, but in translation, the complicated way to follow our policy. So it does push us back about a month later than we wanted to be, but I know that as a majority of the board that I've discussed this with, you feel that it's important to let everybody have a shot at it, and I think it's a good practice too. So that's what you can expect on that. Unless you have any questions, that's all I know.
Anybody have any questions on? Moving on to new business. First thing would be a declaration of critical shortage of certified staff, and I think we have to have this. We cannot hire on critical shortage without this motion, so.
Nor maintain for those we have, yeah.
So moved.
Second, is there any particular way that has to be worded?
So we have it in the minutes pretty much to the same effect. It's really not any different.
Second it?
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I guess everybody voted aye, so.
Yeah.
Next, we have increased insurance costs 5.5% to the total of $151,000.
Move we accept.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, extend counselor contracts from 2 to 3 weeks.
What does that mean?
Yeah, what was the rationale here?
So the exact verbiage of that, with counselors, you have them on a certified teacher schedule. And if it's a regular building counselor as opposed to like a lead counselor, then the way you compensate them for their contract time beyond that of a regular education teacher is an extended school year contract. Our current contracts, verbatim, I reference weeks, are 10 days before and 10 days after. This would be moving it to 15 days before, 15 days after, or some combination thereof, which compensates them for a lot of their work that they just can't do in that amount of time. And that's the legal way to give them some compensation for the time. Long and short, 10 days hasn't been adequate, especially through COVID. They've been working a lot of uncompensated time.
Can we make this more specific than 2 to 3 weeks then? What's the motion specifically for?
So it's going from 10 days before and 10 days after to 15 days before and 15 after, and we can do that, no problem.
15 days.
I don't see any problem with that.
That's okay, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
So move.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstain? All right. Next, we have an increase of 2% for certified staff, the total amount of $341,460.
Does that include administration on that? The total amount?
That would be all you're certified on the teacher salary schedule. And so in regard to that administrative stuff, Harry, that I think you have some valid thoughts worth discussion. We actually kind of covered that through the administrative side of things back in February. This is a number reflecting just your certified teaching staff.
Okay, I'll move accept.
Second.
Second.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstain? All right. Increase of 2% for classified staff for a total of $126,914.30.
Move we accept.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstain? All right, approval of additional $1 for secretaries and certified paras.
$1 per hour, right? Should be the language there, question mark?
Yes, ma'am,
Is
that-
that right?
on the salary schedule, which will break down by hour, yes.
Okay, thank you.
So move.
Second?
All right, any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, approval of ZLOC security mechanism.
I'm going to move to table pending input from Marshall Fire Department and Emergency Management Department.
What'd she say?
I move to table pending input from Marshall Fire Department and Emergency Management Department.
Okay, thank you. I just didn't hear you.
Yeah, went pretty quick. Sorry, Jack.
Do we have a second?
You have to tell me that later.
Motion dies for lack of a second, probably.
Without a second, that motion will die, so. Do I have a motion to approve the purchase of the ZLOC security mechanism?
That's not a proper procedure.
Yes, it is. Robert's rule, yes, it is. Motion died, lack of rule.
I motion we approve it.
Second.
Any other discussion?
I made my concerns known, and it's not even that I'm against these locks. I think I've made that clear too. Not against the locks. I'm against not taking our time with doing it the right way. That's fine. I've said enough.
No, I think you have a good point, and that was one of the reasons I was waiting on it. But I was dragging my feet last meeting, but I've come around to think that because of the cost and getting in there quickly, that I am probably going to support this when we call the vote, because it's a step. I don't know that it's going to feel safer, but I'm leaning towards supporting it. I'm sorry, Aaron.
I mean, it's not personal, Harry.
I know.
Heavens.
I know.
You don't have to apologize to me. It's just business.
Yeah. Call a
All right,
question.
all
Mr.
in favor?
President. Aye.
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 Opposed?
Yep, I'm opposed.
So what do we do?
We passed it 6-5 to 1.
We backed up to the Z-Lock, didn't we? Yeah. Okay.
All right, next we have approved the extra duty stipend for Assistant Athletic Director at BMS.
Can you explain that a little bit, Caleb? How
So-
much the stipend is and what he does?
Yes, sir. So this goes back to, and Harry's had some valid questions on some previous discussions, I think, that go back some time. But but first your question was how much, is that correct, sir? So I misunderstood this last time after I did some more investigation. There had been a placeholder salary schedule for an assistant AD, which must go back some time as well. I wasn't aware of that. So when I look back into that, there's a starting point and an ending point in that stipend. And so the exact amount, Mr. Lenz, would vary based on who actually takes the position. We aren't at this point, we haven't been certain if we'd have it, so we haven't offered it officially to anyone, and it would depend on where they fall, if they had prior experience or not. We had discussed a figure of 8,000, and just as a blanket amount, not knowing that, that salary schedule starts at 6,000 and some change. That's not an exact number, so it starts $2,000 lower than the first proposed number. This would be just looking for the board approval to move forward, finding someone to fill it, and then it would fall into that salary schedule that would start as low as 6, and it caps out fairly small too, I think 10 or 11.
No, I'm not capping at 11.
Well, and as I say that, I apologize. As it stands, so if as we do increases, et cetera, it could grow. It has a maximum right now that wasn't significant, is what I mean, as the salary schedule stands. So my proposal of this would be that if the board approves the position itself, to utilize the salary schedule that exists for it and take into account experience.
But that could get up to $11,000.
Over years, yes. Now,
But we had a long discussion about this. We had incorporated that into the position before, which was one of the reasons we created the position and went with it.
and so to your point, to make sure I understand right, and so the public too, because your point's very reasonable. I believe I understand that, couldn't this be a job duty of a person that we have on staff? And the mitigating factors with that are in regard to having them already on staff versus perhaps some future position, and we absolutely could incorporate that into a future position. We just would be adding this as, it's another duty as assigned, but it's irrelevant to the current job descriptions, Harry. So it's possible down the road, hopefully we don't have to go that route forever, but it would just be the only legal option for us to ask this of a current employee.
So then he works under Kelly?
Yes, sir. So there would be alignment between the middle school and the high school. This would be an assistant to the umbrella that Kelly would be responsible for, and Kelly would also take care of the MSHA guidelines and compliance. They would be more in charge of the day-to-day, the organization, the communication, and the building purchase orders, et cetera, and budget.
You think we ought to do that, Harry?
I don't know, Jack, I don't want to go $12,000, just create another administrative position. We're already paying somebody to do it.
Do we have a motion?
So moved.
I'll second it.
More discussion?
Is there any way we can amend that motion to cap the amount of money?
I would have to check on that, Harry, because I don't know if there would be any concern with doing it with one salary schedule as opposed to all the rest. I honestly don't know the answer with certainty. My initial gut reaction is that would cause me some concern to target just one,
'Cause we've already
as
got
opposed to
those.
blanket with all the other salary schedules. But I know what I can tell you is I will absolutely know with certainty moving forward what the possibility, but I'm afraid I can't know that tonight, I'm afraid. But it's a good question. I understand it coming to your mind now. I just don't know.
I mean, we seem to need, we're open, we seem to need to do something.
Yeah.
All right, I've got a motion and a second. Any more discussion?
Well, there's mulling over down
Yeah.
here.
I'm letting you, I'm giving you the time.
You see, we already, in my opinion, we already screwed this up once,
Yeah.
and I don't want to screw it up again.
Oh, come on, Harry, that's what keeps you alive.
That's right, first time I laughed all day. Thank you, buddy. All right.
Sorry about that, Matt.
I'll call the question.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Abstain. That way I feel honest.
Next, we have approval of policy BDA, which I believe is moving the board meetings
No.
back from the,
Matt, we need got declaration of
Skip
critical
one.
shortage staff.
well, no, that was the one that was sent out yesterday.
Certified.
It's the same.
Yeah, we already did that.
No, that was for teachers.
Well, this is certified too.
Oh,
It's the same one twice.
okay, I can't read.
Oh, yeah, you have one, I had a repeat on there, Harry.
Yeah.
And I apologize, I didn't get you the repeat off on your copy. That
Well, no, I'm
I
working
didn't
from
catch
my
that.
old one that I printed this afternoon
Okay.
instead of the new one that she gave out. I apologize.
So the policy BDA is, I think is just moving our meetings from the fourth Tuesday of each month to the second Tuesday. Is that correct? Am I reading that?
Yes, sir.
What's BDA stand for?
Board.
D. What's BDA stand for?
That's the,
It goes to that MSBA policy, the way they
Board
code it and
date.
alphabetize it, but I'm not board something administration.
When we meet, Jack.
All the board, B policies are board, I believe, the D I don't know, and A is typically, I think it's administration, but it's MSBA legal classifications.
What it stands for.
No, it just means we're going to meet on the second Tuesday instead of the fourth.
It's just the way they code things in the book.
Well, so moved.
Second.
That works.
all right, any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain?
You got more letters coming, Jack.
Yeah, I
Get ready.
got
All right, approval of policy ACA and AC.
Is there a reason that these are labeled, the changes here for board secretary / HR, and that it's not just HR director? I understand that the person who is going to be the recipient of these reports, our Madam Secretary down the way, does currently hold both these positions, but do we want that to be enshrined in in these policies in perpetuity? The life of these policies until they are further amended, could it just be HR director? Genuine question, I could be completely off, I would love to know. One more time into the mic, I can't quite.
She doesn't have a
Doesn't have
microphone.
mic. So those-
My mic?
that was the recommendations of the MSBA to list it
As both?
as both.
And it's because they build it specific to the individuals as you have your organization structured, I believe. Having been a part of that before, I've found that, in fact, I had one time that had 3 job titles, and they were all listed in the policy revision.
The absurdity lies with MSBA, and you guys are just doing your jobs, so here we go. That's fine.
Thank you.
Question answered.
All right, any other discussion?
Did we get a first and a second? I didn't remember.
No,
Oh,
I just
probably
led in
not.
with questions.
I
move.
move, accept it.
I second.
Call question.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed, abstain? All right, next we have approval of the use of a construction manager at risk method for our upcoming on levy school project.
So moved.
I'll
Second.
s- Yeah, I'll second that.
Is there any discussion on this?
No, because this just allows us to send out the RFQ, so.
Yeah.
And we can always back off of it later. Call question.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstain? All right. Next, we have approval of Insight Design architectural contract.
Move we accept.
I second.
This is just that, like, one little exhibit A, right? Or was this the longer document?
There was 2 documents. There was the Exhibit A and then the AIA document.
Okay.
There's more letters for you, Jack.
Okay.
And with that being AIA, we've had that, legals went through all that. Okay. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Next, we have approval of the van bid, which I believe.
Question before we get there, did they include anything on servicing on their contract, David?
No, I do not believe so. Our
I
bus,
know we've got people that can do it.
Yeah.
And just, but within the first few months with a new vehicle, if we were to do some of the servicing, we could lose some of the warranty. So we need to be well aware of that on, if we purchase the new vehicle.
I'll check into that, Harry.
I know Craig's definitely aware of it, I know, but we might just jog his mind, memory there.
And he'll have 36,000 miles on it so fast you want.
Yeah.
Turn around, so
Yeah.
that's not worth anything.
And you may not know the answer to this, but vehicles like this, I know we have bus inspections once a year. Are these vehicles inspected by state as well?
They could just go through your normal Missouri
Okay. Okay.
vehicle inspections.
It doesn't require a CDL.
Correct.
All right, so the bid that you're recommending was for the 2023 Chrysler Pacifica Touring L for $43,420.
60,000 miles on it.
Correct.
Move we accept the bid for the,
Second?
call question?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained? All right.
Okay.
Bid for approval for Southeast Playground equipment moved to Spainhour.
I got another question. David, we already have some equipment here,
Correct.
and we're moving some nice equipment. Did we ever consider that some of that might want to go across the street?
Yeah, and we talked with Insight Design about that. I think what we're gonna wanna do is within their process is to bring in the equipment for over at that building.
Okay.
And plus, we see a need for it here at Spainhour. This playground, especially with moving second grade in,
Yeah,
it's kinda small. I mean, they need some more room for the
Okay.
kids.
and we've got room here to just expand right
Correct.
on out where the baseball field was and everything. They got
Yeah,
nice-
we can go that way, and we can also go that way a
They
little
got
bit.
nice playground out there. I move we accept the bid.
Yeah, my second.
Man, that seems like a.
All right, and that
It
was
does seem
from
like that.
Ozark
Yeah,
Mountain
think about it.
Installations Incorporated for the amount of $43,750. All right, I got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? All right. Bid approval for installation of ADA compliant sidewalk between the high school and the upcoming new alternative school. We had
It was 40.
one bid in the amount of $14,000 from Cracks, based here in Marshall. So they were our only bid.
So moved.
By ADA compliant, we're talking about size and stuff like that. Are we talking about as far as the grade of the concrete and then?
That, in the width is the main thing.
And the amount of rebar put in and everything else. All right.
Yes.
The contract says the amount of rebar.
Probably width and finish, I'd say.
The slope.
Finish, slope, all the.
So I think,
all the
Brad,
things.
did you motion?
I made a motion to
I
accept.
got a motion.
Second? Is that what you want?
Yeah. That's what I want, yeah. All right. Any other discussion on there?
More letters, Jack. Come on, huh?
Oh, yes.
Call
All right.
question.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Abstain? All right, bid approval for sealing and stripping the Butterfield campus, or striping, sorry, the Butterfield campus parking lot. I think we had 3 bids for that, and Cracks being the low bid at
I like the fact that the low bid is the Marshall Company.
$13,941.
Yeah.
And
I
the
move we
local.
Move we
Yeah.
accept the low bid.
Second?
Motion second. Harry made a motion, Jack second.
Call question.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain?
Move we move to a closed session for the closed session in compliance with 610.021 RSMO for the following purposes highlighted.
Matt, can I give a shout out
One,
or
two,
two
three.
before we do that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Okay.
I think so.
First of all, I was down at the ice cream thing that the band parents are putting on, I guess the band parents, and anyway, there was a lot of people down there, the band was playing. They told me they sold like 700 tickets to that thing, and that's a tremendous thing for the band and their scholarship program and so forth. And then I went to the band concert at Beaker Middle School here a while back, and the high school band was there, and the junior high band, and the sixth grade band. And I can't remember the exact amount, but 8 or 9 or 10 eighth graders that would be going into high school, every one of them signed up for a high school band.
Awesome.
To me, those Mr. and Mrs. Summers, they've got those kids, and they really do a job in that music department, and I think we should recognize that some way. I give a shout out to that couple in their handling of that music thing.
As-
That's awesome.
Okay,
As a-
thank you.
As a parent of an orchestra student, I cannot agree with you more.
I agree also.
All right, so I've got a motion for closed. I just need a second.
I'll second. Do I need to say the whole thing, or can I just second?
You s-
Okay.
And we'll roll call. Harry?
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
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 All right.